Today we're going to talk about verbals, which they're kind of a strange thing because verbals are when verbs in a sentence act like other parts of speech. So they're not functioning as the verb in the sentence. So there are actually three kinds of verbals, and I'd like you to take notes on all three. So the first kind is gerunds. A gerund ends in ing. You want to circle and underline that because that's the way you can recognize it. But in the sentence, it's acting like a noun. So in these examples right here, we see this one, jogging is the gerund. Jogging is my favorite sport. It's acting like the subject of the sentence. It's acting like a noun because the verb in this sentence is. That's the action or the state of being, and all state of being means is that you're saying is or are, were or was. So in this case, jogging, which is a verb, normally it's an action, right? But in this sentence, the word jogging is acting like the subject of the sentence. It's acting like the noun. So we have the noun here, a gerund. It's really a verb, but it's acting like a noun. And then the verb is right there, is, and then you finish the thought, my favorite sport. Down below, they show a gerund phrase, which just means it's more than just one word. But all of that is still the subject of the sentence. Jogging 3 miles every day is good for you. So our verb for this sentence is still is, even though the word jogging is a verb. In this sentence, it's acting like a noun. So a gerund ends in ing, and it acts like the noun. It's the subject of the sentence, okay? It's a single word or a phrase. It acts like the subject of the sentence, a noun, okay? It can also be at the end of the sentence as the object of the sentence. I thoroughly enjoy jogging. Jogging is a gerund, ends in ing. And in this sentence, the actual verb, the subject of the sentence is I, and the verb is enjoy. That's what I'm doing. And then what am I doing? The object of the sentence is jogging. So that's a verb, but in this sentence, it's not acting like it. It's acting like a noun. Just like up here, you can see, I thoroughly enjoy baseball. In this case, we're saying, I thoroughly enjoy jogging. It's acting like a noun, okay? You can do the same thing with retained object. So the contractor was given a building. A building, it's a thing, but it also can be a verb, but in this case, not acting like a verb, it's acting like a noun, okay? We're going to skip down. There's a whole lot of these, but basically you're looking for a word that ends in ing and is not the verb in the sentence. It's acting like a noun in the sentence, okay? So there's lots more, and if you really want to get into it and analyze it, you can look at all of these, but really that's what you need to know. The next one is a participle. This is also a kind of verbal. So it's formed from a verb. It's a verb, but it functions as a different part of speech in the sentence, okay? A participle ends in ing, and it's used with a form of to be. We talked about this earlier in the year. So it can also act like an adjective, and it has different endings, whether it's a present participle or a past. So let's take a closer look. In your notes, you want to make sure you write down it is a verbal that functions as an adjective. So a participle functions as an adjective. So with a present participle, it ends in ing with a form of to be, like I am running or she was jogging, okay? So here's our example. The boiling water on the stove is hot. Boiling is a verb, but in this case, it's modifying this noun right here, which is water. And when a word modifies a noun, that makes it an adjective. So the boiling water on the stove is hot. All of this is the subject of the sentence. Is the verb of this sentence, okay? So even though boiling could be considered a verb, in this case it's acting like an adjective, and the verb of the sentence is. The water boiling on the stove is hot. It's still a participle. This happens to be a participial phrase because there's more than one word here, but we still have the word boiling, but that's not the subject. I'm sorry, that's not the verb in the sentence. It's the subject in the sentence. The verb in the sentence is right here. Okay, so it's a word that can be considered a verb. It is a verb, but it's not acting like a verb in the sentence. It's acting like an adjective. Okay, there's also past participles. Those end in ed or en, like the windows were cracked by vandals. The window was broken on Thursday. That coin was lost many years ago. Notice this also forms, all of these are making the passive voice, which we know we don't really want to do. But this is an example where we have the passive voice and it's a form of to be plus the past participle. And those participles are kind of verbal. So when you take out that auxiliary verb, the form of to be, like was or is, and we just use the word to describe, it's a verb, but it's acting like an adjective to describe something, that gives us a past participle. Okay, so the cracked windows have been fixed. You could say the windows were cracked, but we're going to take out were and just shorten it up and say the cracked windows, and then finish the thought, have been fixed. Okay, so there's a past participle, and it's a verbal because it's a verb, but it's acting like an adjective, modifying this noun of windows right here. The broken window was expensive to repair. Broken can be a verb, but in this case, it's acting like an adjective, modifying window right there. And then the verb of the sentence was expensive to repair. Okay, let's keep going. It can also be part of a phrase. That's fine. When you're trying to figure out which one is the verb in the sentence, the windows cracked by vandals have been fixed. You have to ask yourself, what is the subject of this sentence? In this case, it's the windows, which, by the way, happen to have been cracked by vandals. That's modifying windows, making it an adjective. And then here is the actual verb of the sentence. Okay? The third kind of verbal is an infinitive. To me, this is the easiest one because it's a verb and it's in its most basic form, present tense of a verb. So it's always going to have the word to in front of it. The examples they give here, to swim, to think, to read, to be, to cut, to turn. These infinitives can serve in a sentence as an adjective, an adverb, or a noun. So they're verbs, but they're not going to serve as verbs just like all the verbals. They're going to act, in this case, infinitives act as an adjective, an adverb, or a noun. This example right here shows us an infinitive that serves as an adjective. So we have in the example, this is the best time to start. It's modifying the word time, that's a noun. And what time is it? It's time to start. So while that is a verb, to start is a verb, but in this case it's not acting like a verb. It's acting like an adjective, modifying or describing time. And the verb in this sentence is over here. This is the best time to start. So we have a verb here and we have a verbal here, modifying time. So that's an adjective, a verb that's an adjective. There can also be an adverb infinitive. So an adverbial infinitive is going to modify or describe a verb. That's what adverbs do. So we look at our example sentence, like right here, to win, you need the highest number of points. If I look at this sentence and I say, what's the verb in this sentence? Our subject is you and our verb is need. You need. Well, what do you need? The highest number of points. And what is going to describe need? Well, to win, you need the highest number of points. It's describing what you need. So you can also use that in a phrase to prepare for the storm, we nailed plywood over the store windows. So the verb in the sentence, the subject is we. What did we do? We nailed plywood over the store windows. Okay, and then what's modifying nails? Like, why did we nail anything? Well, we did it to prepare for the storm. It's modifying why we nailed something. It's modifying the verb there. So that's an adverb phrase. To prepare. See, you always know because it has to prepare, so you know that it's an infinitive. Okay, it can also be at the end of the sentence. And the hint really is that you're looking for to and something. And then you know that's the verb. And when you can find a different verb in the sentence that the subject is actually doing, then you know that the other one is going to be a verbal. So go back and review. There are 3 kinds. Make sure you have all of them. So the infinitive is to plus something, and you need to make sure you know what parts of speech those are modifying. So right here you can see, remember, they have to and something, and they can be adjectives, adverbs, or nouns. And make sure you have at least one example of that in your notes. And then if we go back a little bit more to this second one, which I think is participles, here it is. So participles function as adjectives, okay? And they can end in ing, or they can end in ed, or a couple of other en, a couple of other endings. So those are verbs, but they're acting like adjectives in the sentence. They're describing a noun. And then the first one we talked about way up here were gerunds. Gerunds are the ings, and they act like nouns. Participles can end in ing, but those act like adjectives. In this case, a gerund, ing ending, is acting like a noun. So make sure you have what each of them is called, what kinds of endings they are, and what parts of speech they act like in the sentence, and then a couple of examples for each. That's all you need to know. Thank you.